Hey everyone, it's Brenda back again with another episode of Three Uniques. I'm really excited to introduce you today to Mike Desjardins. Hey Mark, how are you?
Great. Awesome. Nice to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. Mike, just so everyone knows, is the CEO of ViRTUS. They're a leadership development organization here in Vancouver, Canada. Mike, do you want to share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I've been doing this work for 20 years now. It's something that it's a personal passion for me. So I feel very lucky every day to do the work that I do. I feel blessed because I work with amazing, emotionally intelligent, kind, thoughtful, intelligent people. And then I have clients who fit those same descriptives. So I feel like I've kind of won the business lottery as a result of that.
Awesome. So I remember connecting with Mike like years ago. I had discovered you, I think like on whatever it was, like was it YouTube back then or maybe Facebook? You used to do these posts on Facebook around like updating around like sort of books that you had read.
Mm-hmm.
Debrief of like, hey, I read this Marcus Buckingham book, or I read this book by Stephen Covey, and you talk about it. And I just be like, who is this guy? I need to connect with him. And this is, I think, even before LinkedIn, maybe.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. I mean, the intent behind it was I'd set a goal, I don't even remember, 18, 19 years ago to read a book every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized at one point, like, well, I've read a lot of books. And then people kept asking me, well, have you read such and such? Is that a book I should read? And I kept getting the same questions. I'm like, well, every time I read a book, why don't I just do a quick synopsis to say, yeah, this is a reasonable book. If you want to read this book, this is why I would read it. I also read a lot of books, or there are some business books that I find they're very esoteric. And so unless it's your field,
right,
it's not going to be your jam. And so I thought, well, I'll just start talking about these books. And then if somebody asks me about it, I'm like, well, I did a YouTube thing on that. So I'll just send them the link.
yeah.
And I don't have to go into a whole spiel every time about the same book. So.
Yeah, but what I loved about it too is that you are starting to use social media for leadership development, and I feel like you were one of those sort of like early adopters or early influencers in that space that I knew of, or that like I knew sort of in the Vancouver area that was doing that type of work, and I was just like, so like, oh, this is like obvious, like why aren't more people doing it? So I was just always impressed that whatever you've done, it's always been sort of like getting ready to sort of launch something that maybe other people haven't done. So just for everyone that knows, you can go back and maybe find some videos of
Oh yeah. With crazy hair and I don't know what
hair,
I was wearing.
Yeah. That's awesome. So Mike, you're here to share your three uniques with us. So how about them?
Yeah. So I've been lucky in that in the work that we do a lot of assessment work, right? So I obviously use the assessments on myself. I've done a lot of 360s, done a lot of, personal surveys, that sort of thing. And kind of a feedback junkie in terms of soliciting feedback from my own team on a regular basis so that I can become better as a leader, because I think it's an ongoing journey, this thing called leadership. And even though it's something I've got 20 years experience in, I still feel like I'm learning every day. And so these uniques have popped up for me in regards to doing these surveys and doing these assessments. And so the first thing that comes up pretty consistently is listening and empathy, and deep listening and empathy. The second is that the people close to me come to me for, they say almost anything when they're stuck. And then the third thing I get a lot is something that's a strength finder skill called activation, which is that if somebody is trying to do something big or is stuck on something and they can't figure out like where to start or how to get unstuck, complexity, anything that's overly complex for me doesn't seem so like it very easily becomes straightforward and simple from a path perspective. So I think those are the most consistent three uniques that I get.
Amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about the listening and the empathy, your first one.
Mm-hmm. If my mother was here, she would say that started when I was young. It's been, I don't know, it's always been part of me to be curious and genuinely empathetic about other people or for other people and curious about them. And then over time, of course, all I've done is develop that skill. So innately had that skill as a child, but then I studied and learned how to become better and better at it over time. And I know today at 48 years old, I'm better at it than I've ever been in my life. It is still a conscious choice though, because I still get distracted and, just swirl, right? Like, or let's go ride bikes. Like, it's very easy for me as an entrepreneur to want to chase a shiny object. And so to maintain presence, and to be connected to the person that I'm listening to, one, for me, I want to show a great deal of respect for the person I'm in conversation with. Mm-hmm. And so that's my way of accomplishing that.
Awesome. And your second unique?
Yeah, so my friends come to me for any challenge that's going on, and it's all across the board. And I realized, I kind of know a little bit about a lot of things. And then I like occasionally just deep diving into topics. And so I tend to get friends coming to me when they are stuck on anything. And, from a client perspective, obviously that happens with regards to leadership development, and definitely, coaching CEOs and executives. I find that fascinating because they come with big problems, or they come with big opportunities or big challenges, right? Like, what they come to ask for help with is never something simple and mm-hmm. quick. Maybe the answer is simple and quick, but the issue or the complexity that's there is usually quite big. And so it's just always been that way. And interestingly, I struggle on the flip side. So I struggle to actually stop myself from trying to move forward on something when I should be talking to somebody who's already done it already. So instead of trying to use my own intelligence to figure something out, which is actually in a lot of cases in an inefficient way of doing it, I need to really I have to remind myself to go talk to somebody who I trust and respect, who's already been down that path. Right. And learn from their personal experience.
Which is kind of another reason why I, started doing 3 Uniques, is that I, get to connect with people and hear about things like, oh, okay, like you're a connector, and I feel like I'm a connector, but how do you do it? And like, do you do it the same as me? And, where are those things that we can kind of leverage that way? I love though that you've created that sort of reflection tool for yourself around that. Mm-hmm. And then your 3rd Unique?
Yeah, Activator is interesting because it never really dawned on me that it was a thing until I did Strength Finders. And, so Strength Finders, which is great if anybody is listening to this and you haven't done it yet. It's kind of a cool tool. It's in the same thought process of a 3 Unique. You come up with 5 strengths, and those strengths help to guide you to the types of things. They're your gifts, really. And it helps you to guide the type of career or role that will allow you to best express those strengths. So one of them for me is Activator. And the act of being an activator is really going into something that's complex, or something that's stuck, or something that's failing to launch or is pre-launch, and being able to help people pick the path. Interestingly, details are not my strong suit, and neither is project management. So it's not the act of the details or curating the path, like the minutia details through the path. It's the act of getting the launch to happen. Like, I think so many times in life, there's a failure to launch. So there's all these reasons why I shouldn't just go do the thing, right? Like, oh, I don't have the experience yet, or I'm not smart enough, or I don't know the right people, or there's like an excuse why I can't just go start to do something. Like, I don't know how to surf, so like, I'm not going to go in the water with a surfboard. It's like, well, actually that's going to always be the first step. Right. And so and it's kind of having that idea of there being a growth mindset, that you need to find a launch point. Maybe that launch point is something really simple and really small, but sometimes people are caught in analysis paralysis, where they've made the thing so big that there's no baby step. And when there's no baby step, there's no action. And I always see baby steps. Like, I always see, oh, well, the first thing we should do is just do this. Like, if we did this, that's like, if I just make the appointment, or if I just book the surfing lesson, right? I don't know what I'm supposed to wear surfing. Do I need a board? I don't know. But if I book the lesson, right? Then everything's gonna like assume they know. And so
Yeah,
it'll kind of,
exactly. They'll fill in the blanks. Yeah.
yeah, they'll fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Failure launch, right? You know, and it's just like, all you have to do is just take that first step. And maybe even to what you were saying in your second unique is like, you know, call a friend. Like maybe they've been there, done it before, and they could also tell you, yeah, they'll have surfboards there. You don't need to worry about it, bringing your own.
I think the thing in the second unique that I suffer from is the myth of common sense, which is like, you know, I'm a reasonably intelligent person and I have common sense, so I should be able to ... a thing I've never done.
Right.
Right. And it's just not true, because anybody who's an expert or anyone who's put a lot of time into an individual field and has pursued that for a length of time ends up having a new common sense. And it's a common sense and a wisdom that is profoundly impacted by their experience. No one outside of the field understands that level of common sense. But if you're in the field, you just know that that's the way that it works.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's what I worry about am I working on something, or am I going to try to solve something in my business, in my life, that I'm using a common sense approach, except I lack that common sense because I don't have the experience and wisdom to have gained that specific type of common sense that I need.
Makes sense.
You're hilarious.
No, I mean, like, well, again, it's like sitting from the other side, right? It's just like, while we're in that sort of like circle and spinning around in like the dryer, right? It's just like, open the door and get out, right? You know, and I love the fact that you've got activation. I think I have activation too as one of my strengths. I haven't done the Strengths Finder in a while, but this earlier this summer I did Standout, which is his new.
Oh yeah, right. Which grew out of Strength Finder. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's the work that he's doing in his research work with ADP. And that was great too. You know, there was a lot of sort of similar parallels and even some evolution that I think that I've, you know, because when I did Strengths Finders, I was still like at the Gap. I was still like a district manager or something. I think my regional manager brought it into a meeting and we did it. So this is like, you know, close to 15, 20 years ago or something, but love the tool. And I've always been a huge advocate for Marcus Buckingham. So that's cool that you brought that one up. Mm-hmm. Shifting gears a little bit, here's an unusual question about what is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love to do?
An unusual, okay.
That's your wife or daughter.
Now you warned me that there were going to be questions like this, but an unusual habit, or I mean, if my wife was here, she would have a laundry list of things to say to you. An unusual habit. I mean, I don't know if it's unusual or not. So I really enjoy meditating, but I use a brain sensing headset called Muse. And over the last, because I've meditated for about 12 years, but I always thought I was doing it wrong. And I could never figure out like, well, how will I know when I'm doing it right? And read all the books, et cetera, et cetera. But I use this thing now and for the last couple of years. And what it's done is it gives you auditory feedback by measuring your brainwaves. And so it's helped me learn what a calm state is and what actually being present feels like in the body and what the experience is like in the mind. And so I can look back, now I can look back and go, actually I was doing it right quite a bit of the time in the past, but now it just kind of confirmed that for me. So I do that and I journal every single morning, and my journaling is very specific. And I know a lot of people like to freeform journal, but for me, I have a very specific format. I do it every single morning of the work week. I don't do it on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And it's, what did I learn yesterday? Then it's, what were the 3 wins from yesterday? Mm-hmm. What would have made yesterday better? What am I currently avoiding?
Right.
What are 3 things I'm grateful for? 3 very specific things that I'm grateful for today. And then what are affirmations? Like, what are currently the things that I am working towards in my life? And then what are the 3 goals I want to achieve today? And then I wrap it up with what is my intention for the day? And I have to kind of sit back and reflect on that to think about, well, what is it that, how do I want to show up in the world today? But it's actually, interestingly, it's how do I want to remember myself from today? It's actually the question that I'm trying to answer. So like, end of the day today in the car driving to Whistler, what I'll think about like everything that happened today, but I'll think about how I showed up in the world. And I want that memory to be connected to the intention that I set for the day. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a weird habit or not, but I'm pretty like fastidious about this. Like, yeah, like I'm very regimented because I believe that systems shall set you free. Yeah. Mostly because without them, I end up forgetting to do almost everything in life. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that anyone can define what's unusual, etc. But I think the fact that you've got a routine in place where you set those intentions and you can have that time to reflect on the wins of your day and what you want to do tomorrow and set that up for yourself is huge. It's awesome. I have very similar questions that I also go through on a daily basis. So fun to do. Last question for you. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say and why?
Oh. So the answer to this question came as a result of doing a 3-day plant medicine psilocybin-based journey a year ago.
Okay, great.
Because I read the book, How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. Mm-hmm. And, he said this experience like this is the same as 5 years of daily meditation. And I thought, I gotta go do this. So Sabrina and I went and did this, my wife. And I think the thing that came out of it for me, one was I hope every person on the planet gets to experience what I was experiencing just once in their whole life. Like I had that wish for every human being. Mm-hmm. I think if I had to put that, what the experience was on a billboard, mm-hmm. I would probably say, we're all connected. Love's the only thing that matters. And I would hope that I could afford to put that on as many billboards as possible throughout the planet. Because I think that that's the opposite of that is the root of all the challenges that we face in the world. And by no means do I think it would be a panacea, that if everybody believed that it'd be a panacea and there'd be no conflict. I still believe there'd be conflict. I just think we would do conflict differently.
Right. We could get to an end goal of love, right? You may have to get through the conflict, but like the end goal would be love.
Yeah. And love may be agreeing to disagree.
Right.
Right. Love may be agreeing to not be in relationship because it's too difficult from a style perspective. And what's better for both of us is that we both are elsewhere in the world. The root of all of that is still love. So
awesome. And with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you, Mike, for being on today. I really appreciate you sharing your truth with us.
I appreciate your time, Brenda. Thanks for having me on.
And for everybody else that's been tuning in today, as I always end every episode, remember there's 7.5 billion people on this planet. The world needs what you've got. Take care, everyone.